Good evening, everyone. 6 p.m. I'm Sue Hodgen, the chair of Southport's Planning Board, and I'm calling our regular meeting for the month of March to order. We ask that everyone silence or turn off their cell phones. We will start, as always, with those who can and will. Please stand for the invocation. Will Hewitt's going to do that for us, and we'll follow with our allegiance to country and flag, please.
Our beloved Heavenly Father, as we gather here today, we thank Thee for the many blessings that we have, the blessings of this beautiful town, this community that we can come together for and hopefully make the right decisions that will enrich everyone here. Again, we thank Thee for all that Thou gives us, and we ask a blessing that You'll guide us in all that we do and return us to our home safely afterwards. And we say this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Will. We'll move on with our agenda. Item D tonight is the approval of our minutes for both open and closed sessions for February 20th. You all received a copy of these in advance of our meeting. The open session minutes, complying with the Public Records Act in North Carolina, were published as part of your packets, but you were provided the closed session minutes this evening. Those, as the title implies, are not published. Open session minutes are on pages 2 through 10 of your packet. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the February minutes as prepared? Thank you, Will, in a second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. We do have a motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item E is the approval of tonight's agenda. You were issued this as well in advance of the meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you so much. And second? Thank you, Will. A motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. That passes unanimously as well. Item F is public comment. Do I hear a motion to move into public comment? Thank you, Fred. In a second. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. That motion also passes unanimously. Madam Deputy Clerk, do you have anyone that signed up to speak or anything that's been emailed in?
No, ma'am, I have nothing.
Nobody loves us again, you know? I'm starting to be bothered. Okay, we're all alone in here tonight, so I'm not going to ask if there's anyone here that didn't sign up but wishes to address. So do I hear a motion, gentlemen, to formally end public comment? Thank you, Will, and a second. Thank you, Bob. Motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item G is our old business, and there is no old business included in your packets. We are rolling on to item H, our new business. Item 1 is a UDO amendment to Article 6, stormwater regulations. Ms. Moe, and I see you brought another big gun with you.
Thank you, Chair Hodgen and members of the Planning Board. This evening, Tom Zelenik, our city engineer, is going to present an overview of the proposed stormwater management ordinance that is being proposed. And so after your presentations and questions, staff is requesting that the proposal be forwarded to the existing UDO review committee so that they can discuss this with Tom one-on-one and bring back the full ordinance back to the full board. So with no further ado, Tom Zelenik.
Okay.
Oh,
Got it.
excuse me. And there is a copy of this PowerPoint on your chairs, yes, so you can follow along.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board. Here today to talk about the stormwater management within the city, specifically about getting the stormwater management ordinance that is currently in the UDO updated and a little more stringent to control things that are going on within the city. So with that, I'll start. Stormwater management ordinance. The intent of a stormwater management ordinance is to safeguard property, public welfare by regulating stormwater drainage and requiring temporary and permanent provisions for its control. It's used as a planning and engineering tool to facilitate necessary control of stormwater. This protects, conserves, and promotes the orderly development of land within the city. It goes hand in hand with a lot of other ordinances that are already there in controlling things. Findings. Roadway structures and other property and water bodies are at times prone to flooding. We've seen this very recently, back in September. Flooding is a danger to lives and property of the public. Land development alters the hydrologic response of watersheds, resulting in increased stormwater runoff rates and volumes. Soil erosion from land development and land disturbing activities causes sediment and other pollutants to be transported into our rivers. Increased stormwater runoff rates and volumes and the sediments and pollutants associated with stormwater runoff from future development projects will adversely affect the city's water bodies. What we have out here is the Cape Fear River, and we do want to make sure that stays clean or as clean as possible. We don't want to pollute it or anything. Adopting standards, criteria, and procedures in an ordinance and implementing them address many of the detrimental effects of stormwater runoff. Adopting an ordinance is necessary for the preservation of public health, safety, welfare, and for the conservation of natural resources. Purpose. Quantity of stormwater is what the problem is. More water runs off of impervious surfaces, and it also runs off at a much faster rate. Developed areas can experience localized flooding, and this can damage property and threaten lives. Additional roof area will double the runoff volumes compared to an unimproved sandy or grass area. An ordinance will establish methods for managing the quantity and quality of stormwater leaving a site. So what's the objective of the ordinance? To go over things that have been touched on. We want to reduce the hazard to the public health and safety caused by stormwater runoff. We want to regulate the contribution of pollutants to the storm drain system. We want to prohibit illicit discharges into the storm drain system. And lastly, we want to establish legal authority to carry out inspection, monitoring, and enforcement procedures necessary to ensure compliance with the ordinance. So, getting into the ordinance that's being proposed, the first thing it does is creates two categories for stormwater maintenance: minor development and major development. And this would apply to all lots within the city, including non-conforming lots. For minor development, this mostly deals with infill housing, additions to houses, and things like that. Captures very small projects. Collectively, these all add up to a large volume of water throughout the city. The additional impervious coverage on any lot affects not only the abutting properties, but the abutting, and downstream properties. It just keeps going and going. So in the ordinance, the requirement is to infiltrate 2 inches per square foot of new impervious with an overflow. An example would be a 2,400 square foot house would require 400 cubic feet of storage. Now I'm saying 2,400 square foot house. If the house is getting an addition, they wouldn't have to do the entire house. It would just be the addition to the house. It's only for the increase in the current lot coverage that they have. That's what has to be addressed. Methods to do that. The two main ones are a rain garden, which is a landscaped hollow depression planted with native plants that captures, temporarily holds, and filters stormwater back into the ground. Can be combined, and probably is a good idea to include rain barrels into that, tied into the roof leaders of the house to start distributing it. Cost for that is about $1,500 for a 2,400 square foot house. Another method would be a dry well. Cost on that is about $4,000 for a 2,400 square foot house. The ordinance does include some waivers. First, they must demonstrate that meeting the standards of the ordinance would result in an exceptional hardship. And they would have to show that benefits to the good of the public would substantially outweigh any of the detriments by not doing it. So next, I just have some first an illustration of a rain garden. And then these are just some pictures of, what a rain garden would look like. It's not, it's a very attractive thing. It's a natural landscape. It eliminates lawn area and creates these planting areas. I think there's one more, Cheyenne. Oh, yep, that was them. Okay, the other category is a major development. Major development would apply to more than 10,000 square feet of impervious coverage, and it would not apply to an individual lot owner, unless, of course, they were disturbing more than 10,000 square feet of their lot, which aren't in town that would qualify as. The requirements under there are first for water quantity. You would reduce the 2-year peak flow by 50%. You would reduce the 10-year peak flow by 75% and the 100-year peak flow by 80%. So this is reducing the current flow coming off the lot, where the current ordinance, which I'll get into later, just has it can't increase it. It has to be at least the same. So this is a reduction, which would reduce a lot of the stuff going off-site. Also addressed in this ordinance is water quality. It calls for an 80% total suspended solids removal for the water quality design storm. And it uses green best management practices and groundwater recharge. Another thing this ordinance includes is a maintenance permit. And this is a permit that anyone that has a detention basin or retention pond or any stormwater facility like that would have, and they'd have to fill out a quarterly report that comes in, and they would just have to say that they visually inspected it and everything is working properly. There's no defects in it. It's being maintained properly. And it ensures the stormwater facility is functioning properly. Individual property owners that do these rain gardens and dry wells, they are exempt from having to fill out the maintenance permits and that kind of thing. This is basically for the large developments that have basins and stuff. And the next page is just a sample of what the maintenance report that they would fill out is. Does not need an engineer to do it. Anybody from the development can do it. They just walk the site and check on the categories on here to say, yes, we're cutting the grass around it. Yes, the trash rack is clean, things like that. So here's the current versus proposed ordinance. Currently, the only thing that's required to have storm.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question
Oh,
before we
go
get
ahead.
into all that? I apologize. Back up to the maintenance permit, Tom, please.
Yes.
Developments that have wetlands in their neighborhoods already, they are required, I believe,
Yes.
by DEQ, I
Yes.
think, to have a maintenance of those wetlands, some clean out, that kind of thing. And
Correct.
would this be in addition to that? They would file this with the city as well?
This would be filed with the city. This is strictly with the city, not with the state. And the state doesn't require routine quarterly stuff. It just requires it after major rain events. This would be a quarterly inspection on it, regardless of whether there's rain or not coming through.
And so we would have the city would have a record though of developments that already have that with DEQ to kind of
Yes.
coordinate those, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And we would go through, we just did the stormwater mapping on the system. That includes a lot of these detention basins. So we would go and send letters to all those HOAs that have them that, hey, here's what you need to do. And, I meet with them in person, go over the things. It's nothing that they're not doing now. It's just that they have to do it at a more increased frequency than they do now. And
I like that idea for some neighborhoods that
yes,
aren't doing it now
Yes.
as frequently as they should.
one of the things I've started doing as part of my stormwater review on the development applications is requesting that they actually give a stormwater manual. And at first they were just submitting that DEQ permit. And I said, no, that's not sufficient. You need to tell me what you're looking at, when you're looking at it, how frequently you have to look at it. So on the newer stuff that's come through here in the past year, those developments and they have this larger packet. We just don't have the permit set up for them yet. Okay, so current versus proposed ordinance. The current ordinance just kicks in if there's 10,000 square feet of increased impervious coverage or 1 acre of disturbance. So that leaves out most of that infill housing and that kind of stuff that I'm talking about. So in the proposed ordinance, it would kick in at 800 square feet of impervious coverage or 2,000 square feet of disturbance. That would catch those little things and get them addressed. For a major development, right now, the 210 and 25-year storm, there's no increase in peak flow. That's the requirement on the design of the detention facilities, the stormwater facilities. Under the proposed ordinance, as I said earlier, the 2-year storm peak flow is reduced by 50%. The 10-year is reduced by 75%, and the 100-year reduced by 80%. So you're having less peak flow go off the site, which will not inundate our system. It releases it at a slower rate. On water quality, currently there is no total suspended solids requirement. The ordinance proposes an 80% TSS removal for water quality design storm. On minor development, according to the ordinance, currently there's no regulation on anything. They can do whatever they want. You can pretty much pave over your entire lot, make it impervious. Under the ordinance, you're going to infiltrate two inches of any new impervious coverage on the lot. Going beyond the ordinance, the next steps. Another way to complement the ordinance is a land disturbance ordinance. Goes hand in hand with the stormwater ordinance. This preserves trees and woodlands from unjustifiable destruction, preserves soil from erosion and sedimentation, and protects the use and transfer of topsoil. Exemptions to this land disturbance ordinance would be gardening for home consumption and construction of a single-family dwelling, not causing land disturbance more than 2,000 square feet that are not part of a subdivision. If the house being built is part of a subdivision, that's already gone through the whole stormwater design part, and that's part of their calculations. So they would not need this. Requirements for a land disturbance ordinance would be a grading plan with the existing and proposed topography. What happens is a lot of times someone will come in and raise their property so that everything drains off them to their neighbor, even though the natural flow would be across theirs to the neighbor. So it creates a dam on one side, and on the other, it's flowing down in a more intense manner. So that's one of the things that would be looked at. You would need a soil erosion and sediment control plan to keep the runoff, from taking your disturbance onto your neighbors. You would need a project schedule, and depending on where it is, an environmental impact assessment. Factors for approval of a land disturbance permit. Once again, not part of this ordinance, but I really want to stress that it will go hand in hand with this ordinance. Retaining natural vegetation wherever practical. Disturbance over areas that are no larger than reasonably necessary. You need to seed, sod, and mulch and stabilize the exposed areas during construction and at times of land disturbance. You need to put diversion, vegetative buffers, mulching and siding, and other measures to check to divert runoff and gather sediment from runoff. Retention of rainfall on site. Control of increased runoff resulting from modified soil and surface conditions. If you have a wooded lot and you clear it, now you have nothing there, you're going to get much more water running off that site. Control of erosion and sedimentation through all aspects of the project, and assurance of lasting stabilization of the soil after construction. Beyond that, there's additional items that need to be included as we go further down the line with passing the first stormwater ordinance and then getting into the land disturbance. We need to set impervious coverage limits. This would vary by what zone it is, but it would help regulate a lot of things. Lot coverage limits also. And lastly, not as critical, but still falls in line with the other, floor area ratios for lots. And with that, I will open it up for discussion. I know that was a lot of stuff all at once. I will say the ordinance that you have in your packet is something Mo and I have been working on. It's not finalized because just within the past month, we changed the way it was going to go from being standalone to trying to fit it into the existing UDO. So there's a lot of sites in there that reference where it was originally, and we got to go through and make those sites fit to what it will be in the current.
Y'all been doing a lot of that lately, looking at things that have happened and finding out where things need to be fixed.
Correct.
Inside the UDO for that. I'm appreciative of y'all's work on this. I'm gonna ask some questions, and then if you will, give me some citations in here and tell me how it's addressed, okay? Is that all right to do? So you talked a little bit about soil that's brought in during builds. In my own neighborhood, I'll tell you, probably everybody's had experience at that, seeing something a lot either adjacent or down. Two have been finished recently on our cul-de-sac, and both of those builders brought soil in to build it up. So we're down a little bit where we are. So how and where in this is that addressed?
That is not addressed in this ordinance. That would be the land disturbance ordinance that I was talking about.
Okay.
That would follow up this ordinance.
It's to be determined. Then.
Exactly.
To be developed.
To be developed. It's rough drafted right now, but the thought process was to not come in with these 4 or 5 ordinances all at once and get overwhelmed by them,
Understood.
to address one at a time, with the most important one being the stormwater management,
Okay.
and then following through with the others as the lower hanging fruit within that.
So our infill lots are considered minor developments under what you've developed,
Correct.
right? Under what you've written so far. Pool installations, where I know builders also, you smile so nicely, where builders bring soil in for that as well. I think they're required to, right, to build it up a little bit to allow for that settling, for lack of a better term. But where will that be addressed as far as neighbors' hydrology on that and the risk associated with a Florence coming and folks that don't live here all the time? And all of a sudden, we all have pools in our backyard.
Right. Well, the land change, that would be part of that land disturbance.
Okay.
And I'm smiling because the question that always comes up, and this is not a decision that for me to make, it's what is a pool considered? Is a pool considered impervious or is it considered pervious? Because there's an argument on both ends. Generally, the pool is not filled up to the brim. So you could say, well, it's got 4 inches of clearance before it overhangs, so it's pervious because it could take that first 4 inches of rain, which is more than the standard rain. Other people look at it and say, anything that goes there is not, running off. It's a solid body. So I've worked in places where it's been considered pervious. I've worked in places where it's been impervious. If you were to give me an argument to make it impervious, I could give you an argument to make it pervious and vice versa. So that's more of a feeling of what the board feels a pool should be, impervious or pervious.
And so that'll be things that our committee will talk through as y'all are developing this land disturbance ordinance to take care of that.
Or that actually probably should be part of the discussion on the stormwater ordinance, because the pool area could be considered impervious and it could be considered pervious. So that would be part of that discussion. And like I said, I can make an argument for you either way. It's what you as a board feel.
Okay. So patios and improvements on existing properties. Do we have impervious requirements, like in HOAs, in neighborhoods? There may be impervious requirements or restrictions already. So if something like that is added on to outdoor kitchen, patio, that kind of thing, how is that in check? How is that checked?
Currently, you could.
Keep going. Everything's okay? Because I think your mic died, Tom, or tried to on us. I'm sorry. I'm going through all my questions. Y'all jump in there. Do these impervious limit impervious for better water management? That's what the goal is, obviously, for it. Because I know as the city continues to grow, we're
Correct.
so that's the ultimate goal, is to manage all of this that's going on, either through impervious restrictions or setting up ways that folks can handle runoff better, that kind of thing. That's what we're going for.
That is the goal here. That's the reason for creating the minor development stormwater permit. Because right now, like I said, there's nothing that the city can require of those lots under the ordinance, because they're not disturbing more than 10,000 square feet. Or I should say, they're not creating more than 10,000 square feet of impervious or disturbing more than an acre. Those are the larger, subdivisions. But the infill housing, there's nothing we can do about that. This gets a mechanism in there to address the stormwater that's coming off those lots.
So the flooding from both Florence and number 8 down Fodale and Park and Stewart, how will, excuse me, how will what we're proposing here, what's going to take care of that for those folks, for those existing homes and those roads that are out there?
On any area that is fully developed, this ordinance is not going to change anything on that unless people in that area are coming through to put an addition on the back of their house, to put a patio in, to double the size of their driveway, things like that. But for what's currently out there, if they're not doing anything, this ordinance does nothing for that. This is about managing future development within the city. Once the horse is out of the barn there, we can't go back at it and get it. Now, outside of that this ordinance, we do have a recently completed stormwater capital improvement plan that was part of the stormwater mapping project.
Excellent.
That listed 13 projects within the city. Those would be the top 13 that we should do. They came with a price tag of $30 million. We currently we submitted an LOI, letter of intent, to apply for an application through the State Department of Public Safety for a BRIC grant, it's called. And we were accepted for that grant. That particular item it's called Bonnets Creek Phase 1. Currently, there's a stormwater system that runs under the hospital emergency room. This would eliminate that running underneath and run it down the street. And it would also install stormwater in the rear yards of Fodale, where there now is a ditch that is privately owned. And further down, it would increase the capacity of that system also. So that is outside of the ordinance, but it is something the city is doing and working.
So that grant, that study and that grant money is going to help that area out there that gets inundated because it's so low down to begin with.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The problem with the city, I shouldn't say the problem. The city is flat. There is no grade in this city. Everything is flat. So down, it sits until it can get into a drain and then go. The way the city was developed, a lot of these areas don't even have storm drains in them.
So will the BRIC work? Do anything about putting drains in those areas?
It does call for some drains in areas that are within that sub-region that it does. But it doesn't go through the whole city to say this area doesn't have any, we need to put them. We know that. It's just, where do we go first?
Okay. Because, and the reason I ask about, and I know this doesn't it indirectly connects to all of this, but I've had folks talk to me about in that area, how they feel like that, and basically they've been told they didn't fall into as a priority in that stormwater study. So they're kind of going, we're stuck.
They actually, they were one of that area, mostly because of the water going, the storm pipe that goes under the emergency room. That was the #1 priority for repair. And that's why it was submitted for that grant. Normally, if we're going to do stormwater repairs, we would start at the river and work our way out. Right. But because of going under a hospital emergency room, God forbid anything happen, we'd have to rip that emergency room up to repair the pipe. Not a good thing.
And then talk about when all of this is, let's just say all of this is ready to be implemented, okay? How is it enforced?
In what respect, how is it enforced?
As in, if we see that someone's violating either in a development or a single building, someone sees that, is it just the regular, what I call the tattle method?
Well,
no.
First, the first line of everything here is get it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
It's your fault.
I'm laughing. Thank you, Lord.
The way most of this stuff is all going to get caught is through their building application. You come in to put a patio in, you need a building permit. You need to you put an addition on your house, you need a building permit. We've already started that anything that goes into the building department for a permit gets sent over to me to look at for stormwater. It's just to set up getting this
Okay.
ordinance in place. Right now, my comment is there's nothing, that in our ordinance that requires them to do anything. But the process is starting now that these things are being sent to me to look at as an initial review.
And that's kind of what I see in all of this, Tom, is that we're setting up process that, and I think it will help the citizenry to understand that this is what we're doing. It will all culminate in process so that city staff is keeping a check on it as people apply for permits and it goes through you, then it sets up with inspections. So
Correct.
that, and Lord help our inspection staff once all this is done.
Well, this inspection would be outside of the building department. This would be an inspection by myself. Probably Tom Stanley would get involved in it a little
Well,
bit
then
also.
Lord help you.
But it would
when
be
all of this
primarily
gets
myself would be doing it.
in.
And,
Okay.
I just want to say that, in addition to working with Mo on this, Kylie was also involved in this ordinance because he's going to be the kickoff point for kicking it for reviews and things.
When the permits come in,
Correct.
or when those apps come in originally for those.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay, y'all, I'm going to stop talking, but I'm going to leave this on. You ask your other questions.
Man,
Go ahead, please.
first of all, I'd like to say you guys did a good job on the ordinance. It's a lot of work. I would expect a lot of pushback, right? Because now you have a lot
It's a
more
given.
constituents, right?
It's a given.
But one comment, I want to temper expectations here. A stormwater management plan is not going to alleviate, what happened in September.
Yes.
That's a 1,000-year storm. If you're talking about 6 inches of rain, you might see an impact, an improvement. You're talking about 20 inches of rain. Nothing
And
is designed for that.
Florence did the same thing, folks. Folks that think that that kind of water is going to disappear, that's delusional.
And that's something I do want to bring up because this has come up a lot since September. Everybody's like, oh, our stormwater system failed. No, our stormwater system didn't fail in September. It was overwhelmed because the stormwater system is only designed to handle a 25-year storm. We had a 1,000-year storm. This ordinance is only designed for a 100-year storm. So when you get over that, that's out of control. And to try to build an ordinance on that is going to be so cost prohibitive to anybody to do anything and not even reasonable to ask to design for a 1,000-year storm.
That's
So I did want to make that point. Thank you.
So I've got a bunch of comments and I'm not going to go through them, but some general things. Definition of impervious surface is critical. And it would have to be Southport's definition. DEQ is all over the map. Pools are impervious. Pools are pervious. I worked on a 20-acre reservoir that was impervious at first. And the problem is
You
the
understand.
goalposts are moving, right? So we know what kind of BMPs and what kind of impervious pavements and things that people would apply to Southport. And we should probably make a list and say, this is pervious, this is impervious, and leave it out there.
And the definition in the ordinance for an impervious surface is a surface that has been covered with a layer of material so that it is highly resistant to infiltration by water.
Highly resistant, right? So that's been one of the bugaboos with DEQ stormwater management for years.
Agreed.
So the other thing, and I was looking at your objectives, objective number 4 for carry out inspection and monitoring. I mean, these things fail because they're not maintained. They don't fail because somebody made a calculation error they do, but generally speaking, they fail because they're not maintained. And the larger the runoff, the more likely the unit is going to need maintenance or will fail. So I read about the bonding in the proposed ordinance. And I would say you need to add some steroids to that, especially for developers who will who will flip that responsibility as soon as they can to an HOA who doesn't even have an understanding of.
Right. And, you know, and that's one of the weaknesses with a lot of stormwater ordinances is that they don't include the maintenance aspect of it or follow up on the maintenance end. That is the critical part.
Right. And some municipalities have development bonds that go, 3 years after closure of the development or the establishment of vegetation or whatever. So that developer's on the hook for some period of time.
Right.
Bond. So, and also just reading through this, and again, I will be glad to send comments. I'm not sure how that works, but when you're going through the ordinance as written, sometimes it's not clear who's reviewing and who's ruling on alternatives and waivers. Sometimes it says city staff, city engineer, the department, which is DEQ. I don't really know what their involvement would be.
I think there may be one or two instances where we missed it, but for the most part, it goes to the city engineer as the named reviewer for stormwater management within the ordinance.
Okay. Yeah.
There may be a here or there where we miss it.
Yeah. There's a couple
Clean.
references to the department there.
Well, and that's because just because we have our ordinance, they still have to comply with the DEQ and get their permit from DEQ. Ours is allowed to be more stringent, which it will be. So they have to meet both DEQ and us. And that's why there's still some references to DEQ, but ultimately there is a clause in there that says everything must meet our ordinance.
Right. And this specifically to me is an issue with waivers, alternatives, things like that.
Yes.
And it's also a big deal on pervious pavement. The definition of pervious pavement is all over the map. And if it's not maintained, it doesn't stay pervious.
Exactly. And that's one of the things, I just showed one of the maintenance things, and that was for a detention basin. There's another one for impervious pavement. I've had experience. I've put impervious pavement in parks and things like that. And it's great, but you have to maintain it. You have to vacuum it quarterly, especially in an environment down here where you have a lot of sands.
Right.
That pervious pavement will become impervious within a year if you don't maintain it properly. And maintaining properly is not sweeping it with a broom because you're just pushing it into the ground. You have to actually vacuum it out. So there, like I said, there's a whole nother maintenance sheet for that. Each different type of stormwater management technique has its own maintenance sheet that they will need to do.
Taking enough time. Thank you.
No, it's fine. This is great. Who else has comments or questions? Larry?
Through the chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's talk about rain gardens. And I'm not saying that just because there's an R in there and then I'm not using my eyes, but rain gardens, if they're not designed properly, just don't work.
Correct.
And if they're not maintained properly, they just don't work. So how do you determine or how do you decide that the rain garden is designed properly?
You have to see the design. I can't say, if you give me a couple designs, I could say, yes, that is good. No, that isn't.
Mm-hmm.
There's some certain models that you have to follow. You have to get to, first thing you have to do is get to an area of ground that will infiltrate water. So you need to do a perk test to verify that the water is actually going to go in.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one thing. I don't feel that the rain gardens are going to be that much of a problem here because we really don't have a clay soil that would reduce that. Most of our soil is all sand and is just going to basically suck the water through until it hits the groundwater table. So now you have to also see what the groundwater table is in relation to that rain garden. Is the groundwater table built into the rain garden? In which case, it's going to happen what you're saying.
Yeah.
So those are the two big things that would need to be part of the design is shown groundwater table and the perk rate of the soil.
Yeah, I would tell you from my own experience in my house, they brought in a lot of clay material that trying to put some plants in, it was so hard packed that nothing was going to go through it, not even a shovel very easily. Right. So the other part of it is, how about the maintenance? How do you ensure that maintenance kept up? Otherwise, the sediment is just going to carry right down to the stormwater systems. Or is that just one of those, you hope they do it?
That's one of those ones that if we make homeowners do this, it's never going to go through because there's going to be so much resistance.
Yeah.
You have to give a waiver on the maintenance side to them.
Okay.
You know, we could send them a letter because we know they're putting them in. So we can send a letter out every year. Hey, have you maintained it? But as to forcing them, because it's an individual homeowner on an individual lot, it becomes a mess.
Yeah.
To try to enforce. And that's one of the reasons that there's the waiver for single family houses on their systems.
Okay, good, because I
With
was
the
thinking
inspection.
that would just be an absolute nightmare, having somebody, they'd be here all day. That's all that you're
I
doing.
would want to
Yeah.
go up to, well, everybody that puts a rain garden in, say, you're not maintaining it, you need to dig it out and redo it.
Yeah.
That gives a black eye to the city.
Sure. And they're tough to maintain. You have to keep them cleaned out. You have to keep the vegetation proper and on and on and on.
Right.
The other question I have, with respect to the city's right of way, that we have been working on or have worked on, are rain gardens going to be allowed in the rights of way? I would say there's no reason why they shouldn't be, quite frankly.
I don't see why they shouldn't be.
Okay.
They're not an obstruction.
Right.
In most cases, it's more of a beautification of the area.
Mhm.
A lot of these are in right of ways when people build them.
Yeah.
So once again, that would be more of a determination of the board of what they want. Like, does it have to be kept out of the right of way, or is it allowed in the right of way?
Sure.
Once again, that's another, I can give an argument either way.
Because it's not going to do any harm to have them in the right of way.
Not at all.
This is really nice work. I appreciate all the work of staff. It's nice to have this, and it's a job well done. Thank you. That's all I have for the moment, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Tom, I think there is a reference in the ordinance about preventing BMPs in the right of way or city owned right of way. I think there is. And that might be for majors and not for minor, but I think that's something you'd have to clarify, because obviously if somebody has a nice rain garden and they maintain it, and then somebody needs to put in a sewer line,
Right.
I mean, preferably they wouldn't be in the right of way, but
Right.
again, the ordinance needs to be clear on that.
Anything else? Fred?
So the goals are great, and I support that. As I think John said, there's probably going to be a lot of pushback with being overregulated, but that's the way it is. Wouldn't the design of a rain garden be in a low-lying area more than likely?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be, though. If it's built deep enough, it would be okay.
Okay. Couple questions on your dry wells. Would that be tied into a gutter system on the house?
It doesn't have to be. It just would have to have the water directed into it. So you don't have to directly connect into the dry well with the leaders, as long as you have a swale or something going into that area where the dry well is.
So for example, on Oak Island, I think they require a gutter system going underground.
Going
connecting.
directly to it.
Right.
Right.
And then just a curiosity, the phase one of Bonnet Creek, does it physically impact Bonnet's Creek as we know it?
It probably is going to increase the flow into Bonnet's Creek. Until we have the full hydraulics of the design, we won't know, but we're guessing it is going to have more of a flow going into Bonnet's Creek.
Would there be any benefit to maintaining Bonnet's Creek to help with stormwater management?
Bonnet's Creek in most areas, and Bonnet's Creek is in my backyard, is adjacent to Bonnet's Creek in most areas are wetlands. And wetlands' natural purpose is to take that flood and, stormwater, retain it, and then slowly release it during the storm. So will it affect the wetlands? Yes. Will it negatively affect it long-term? No. That's the purpose of the wetlands that are adjacent to Bonnet's Creek.
So when I walk over the bridges looking at Bonnet's Creek or being able to see it in the distance, it seems like it's filled in quite a bit over
What's
the centuries?
what's happening in Bonnets Creek is actually a family of beavers has decided to take up residence and is fighting off the alligators. And they keep building beaver dams in Bonnets Creek that back up the area. And then Public Works goes in and knocks them down. And a month or two later, they build it back, and it's a vicious cycle. So a lot of what you're seeing in Bonnets Creek and the increased height of it is due to the beaver dams.
So maintaining Bonnets Creek is part of the big picture,
That is not part of this ordinance. That's
Right.
something that the town
right?
does, yes.
Anyone else? We've got natural recreation going on between staff and the beavers. This is great. Who'd have thunk it, right? Okay, so now, from what I'm understanding from this, there's no action required from this other than just refer it on to our UDO committee to work with y'all to talk out other concerns, right?
Yes. And then at
Excellent.
some point, bring it back
Right.
to get a recommendation, send it to the board, and get them to approve it.
And start hearing from lots of folks, right? As we keep saying, the fun's only begun. Y'all thought your work was progressing well. Just wait. Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen. That's good conversation. Appreciate that. Item 2 is the UDO updates for 160D consistency. Anytime there's legislative action, such as the county's capture of our ETJ last year, there are corresponding items in our UDO that require eyes on and revisions. Staff is charged with those reviews and any text to be corrected, and that's what Mo is going to talk to us about tonight.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and
Mhm.
members of the board. As you mentioned, this is part of a legislative review of Chapter 160D of the general statutes. And the following text amendments are submitted for just a routine update of the UDO so that we have corresponding language that matches what is statutorily required. So I'll just briefly go through the 4 amendments to this, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. So the first one is going to be to section 210B4, planning board action. And this is found in 160D 604. And this applies to zoning text and map amendments that if there is no written report received from the planning board, the governing board may act on the amendment prior to without the recommendation of the planning board. And that's a may, not a must or shall or will. So that's just how it's written in 160D.
And this is just for text amendments, right? This is not submissions to this. Well, I want to be sure I'm thinking about this right.
Sure.
Text amendments that are requested by the public, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Fall in that category, right?
Yes.
Once we get an application requesting a text
Mhm.
amendment, we have 30 days to act on it.
You don't have to have 30 days. It can be triggered. It does not have to be triggered.
Okay.
Yes.
So it just starts the process,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next amendment is section 215D, penalties and remedies for violations. And this is found in 160D 404. And it removes the provision for criminal penalties. And excuse me. So then all of the appropriate enforcements are going to be in their general statutes 160A-175 enforcements of the ordinances. So again, that's just a cleanup on that so that all of our remedies are following the statutes. The next one is section 215E, which is transferring lots in unapproved subdivisions and for violations. And this is found in 160D 807. And this is adding a new section to the UDO, which allows remedies for unlawful subdivisions of land. So now we don't have that ability in our UDO.
And these insertions, this is copied from 160D,
Yes, this is
right?
direct, yes, this is direct language from.
This is a, we ain't got no choice.
That's-
It's going in there.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the last one is section 4.2. no subdivision without a plat approval, and that's found in 160D 807 as well. And it reiterates that all subdivisions must meet the requirements of Article 4 subdivisions in the UDO, as well as procedures in Article 2. So that's the administration and procedures of the UDO. So just stating, reinforcing that, yes, your subdivision must meet this and follow the procedure outlined for subdivisions of land. And then it also provides the procedure to allow the sale or lease of property prior to a final plat approval. So this gives not only the developer, but also the buyer some guarantees of what could happen and remedies if the final plat changes prior to the recording. So there's some safeguards there for the buyer.
What, well, does anyone else have any questions or comments about this before I ask you my question, Mike? Okay, so of these things we're required to put in, what are the ups and downs of what was changed to, what disadvantages do you see for Southport in what's required that we're inserting in our UDO now? Anything bad?
I don't see anything that's negative, no.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. That's always good to hear that
Yes,
what's
it is.
going in
Yes, it
statute
is.
is not
always
bad.
correct.
That's right. Okay. So what we need is any other questions or comments for Mo about this? So at this point, Mo, do we need a motion
Yes.
to approve
Yes,
these?
please. And then also, so yes, staff does recommend approval, and it is consistent with the Kama Land Use Plan
Okay.
2014. And there is a consistency statement in your packet. That is page,
Thank you.
apologies, 69.
69. Okay.
Oh, that's a denial. So that'll be 68. 68
would be the approval.
one.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Mo? Hearing none, do I hear a motion that we approve these text amendments as presented so that we can then forward them on to the Board of Aldermen? Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And a second? Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. It wasn't Bob. Was that Bob? Thank you, John. I appreciate that. All right. And Larry. All right. We have a motion on the floor. Any additional conversation? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, and I'll need someone to please read that consistency statement for acceptance on page 68. Okay. Thank you, Larry.
Statement of, it's the amendment ZTA-25-01. Statement of consistency and recommendation. The City of Southport Planning Board hereby recommends adoption of the proposed zoning text amendments to the Board of Aldermen and finds that they are consistent with the city's 2014 CAMA Core Land Use Plan, originally adopted November 13th, 2014, and subsequently amended by the Southport Board of Aldermen. More specifically, the proposed amendment is consistent with policy 7.22. The city shall continually maintain all official planning documents.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move on now to other business. Item I. Number 1 is our planning and zoning updates. Mr. Biddle, your turn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, gentlemen, and happy spring. This is going to be very brief. Yeah, right. This is going to be quite brief. We only have one item on the dockets. It's in re-review right now. It's the company's called SOPO, and it's a minor site plan that's low intensity, going to be at 724 North House Street. Basically, Zone BD. It's a multiple use retail space, bottle shop, wine bar, possibly restaurants. And as I had mentioned, they are currently in re-review. So I expect that they should have TRC approval by next month's meeting, in which case I'll give a little bit of a presentation about what to expect, include any details that you may need.
And what's the name of the company again?
SOPO is the name of the store that will be.
Okay.
SOPO. Yes, sir.
Where is that located? I'm drawing a blank.
724 North Howell is really close to City Hall. So if you know where the Circle K is, just a little bit further down from there. Next to the ABC store. Thank you.
Oh, okay. That small building that's next
Yes.
door. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Wynn. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Number 2 is our Planning Services Director's updates. Ms. Meehan.
Yes, thank you again. Just going to hit a few different items here. First, the UDO Update Review Committee did meet on March 6th and reviewed the Board of Aldermen and the staff requested amendments, as well as went over large, big picture items that the committee itself brought forward. And the next meeting will review the proposed stormwater ordinance that was just reviewed this evening. And Tom Zelenik will be at the meeting, excuse me, for those conversations. And we will bring updates to the committee updates to each of the meetings moving forward with topics that were discussed and any language that was also discussed at the time. So we'll be working with that committee and putting together a meeting. We don't have our next meeting scheduled at this point. We're hoping in the next couple of weeks we can have something on the books and keep moving this forward with everything. The next item is that our next Board of Adjustment meeting, excuse me, is next Tuesday, March 25th. And that is at 4:30 at the Indian Trail Meeting Hall. Excuse me. There are 2 agenda items on this agenda. It's the variance request for Homes to Suite Hotel for relief from section 3.8R, the hotel, motel, and inn standards. One section is the height, and as the ordinance is written, as long as the fire chief approves and says that they can meet the needs by the fire, then the Board of Adjustment will grant that amendment to the height. And the next is going to be the location, since it is not located directly on the highway. The next case is a special use permit for an accessory dwelling unit. The Forestry Committee is hosting Arbor Day, and they're having their annual Arbor Day celebration on April 25th, and that'll be located at Franklin Square Park. The comprehensive plan has been sent to Division of Coastal Management for their review. So that is under their review. So they have 75 days. I'm hoping that we can make that happen much sooner than the 75 days. There is an input form on the website, the city's website, as well as a copy of the plan that was sent to the Division of Coastal Management. So I encourage everyone to go and look at the plan, review the plan. And there, like I said, there is an input form right there. So you can put your name or not, and just if you have any comments or questions, that'll come directly to staff and we can address those. The courtesy letters for structures within the public right-of-ways have been sent. These are courtesy letters. They are not violations, just informing people of the new right-of-way and if they have any structures that may need to come into compliance. There is the grace period until June 12th to bring those into compliance. And if anyone received a letter and they feel that that is in error, or if you have any questions, please definitely reach out to development staff, planning staff, so that we can help answer any questions or, resolve any issues that may be there.
And Mo, there's is there a way for waivers for those as well, or does that come after the June deadline?
There aren't necessarily waivers, but there is currently a permit
Okay.
and right-of-way permit for the allowed uses. So you can plant trees if anyone needed to have one taken out. You can put protective measures around your existing trees if necessary to save people from parking too close to a established tree. So there are a couple other things that we can help you do, and there are parking pads. That's the other one. So you can install parking within your right of way with this permit. So those are the 3 things you can.
And in general, have the letters been well received?
They have. It's that we have had a lot of people already come into compliance, people who have questions that are coming forward that, we're trying to work with everyone, and we are still working with the Board of Aldermen, trying to get some policy together for some issues that have come up since the changes in the ordinance, so that we know that where things might need some little tweaks and some changes to the ordinance itself, or some internal policy of how we can enforce this.
Okay.
So,
Excellent.
and I just wanted to give a brief update on House Bill 24. It is filed to restore the downzoning authority statewide, and it is still in committee, so there's been no movement of that. And since your last meeting, there are now 22 other House bills that have been filed to restore authority in specific jurisdictions. Unfortunately, Brunswick County is not one of those jurisdictions. So hopefully soon we'll have something moving forward that we can get back on track with some of our
And
ordinances.
I'll say contacts that I still have in Raleigh say that that's going to be repealed, but we kind of have to,
Right.
we just kind of have to sweat.
Yes.
I
So
think
we're
they like to
patiently.
see that,
Yes.
how much we can do that, but it does, some of those things have to wait till the very end
Right.
to kind of see what kind of feathers have been ruffled in the meantime. That always
Yes.
plays itself out in all of it too. So yes, I hope, we all hope that gets worked out.
I agree. And then that concludes my update.
Thank you, Mo. Appreciate it. Oh, Mo, I'm gonna ask you, there was conversation at the alderman's meeting last week, a lot of conversation, but, there was conversation about the entryway
yes.
corridor.
Yes.
Can
So-
we just in general talk about what took place with that? And then I think the alderman had a specific meeting on that yesterday.
They had a
Correct?
workshop on that yesterday.
Okay.
Yes, I apologize. I should have.
That's
added that.
okay. No,
So
me too.
the city has been working with county planning staff to establish an overlay to the entrance corridor. So this would be from 12th Street or Stewart Avenue to Robert Rourke 87 intersection. So it's just a couple blocks, but they're very significant blocks
Yes.
into the entrance of the city. So staff has been working to try to get some of the standards that are existing within our ordinance, if not exactly, very, very close to similar, so that any developments that come in from the county side and county jurisdiction, this overlay then would be triggered and any development would have to meet these requirements. Because of Senate Bill 382 and the downzoning, that's everything installed here as well, but we definitely want to work together and have something prepared and ready to go once we have the opportunity to ask the county for inclusion of this. We are very encouraged that they do want to add this to their upcoming UDO, that the county is in the process of doing a full rewrite of their UDO. So that will be included. We have been told that they want to include that in it. We have not gotten the final language. At the workshop yesterday, the alderman reviewed comments that the county had sent back after our initial submittal of what kind of items that the city would like to see: height, footprint sizes, certain uses, some of the colors, design standards, as far as we are allowed to do for design standards. So, and what the county came back with, there were some changes, some things. They didn't love the height at 40 feet. So they reviewed item by item what was changed, what was kept. And so then now staff is going to go forward and do a comparison of the Brunswick County ordinance and what the changes are, and see, and then bring those back. And then hopefully the aldermen will come together with some thoughts of what they would like to include. And hopefully we can get this taken care of so that just save, what we can of the entrance.
I can't help but smile when I think before the ETJ went away, poof, and was gone. The planning board, for those that weren't on it then, we were actually starting to work on
Yes.
a corridor.
Yes.
What we knew it needed to look like
Right.
leading into town. Being proactive in this now, I think, is important. Kudos to y'all for continuing to work on this in the hopes of that repeal going through, so that we're ready with the next thing to happen. And it's a start, and I think Alderman Mosteller brought this up last week at the meeting when they were talking about this. If you want to get the idea of what that end of Howe Street can look like, go look at the dry stacks at the marina. That's what can be right next door to what is in city limits now. It's kind of frightening when you think about what could actually happen approved by the county, just right up against us. I think it's important to try to get some blending of these abutting properties so that it's not only aesthetically pleasing, but doesn't inundate us with even more coming into town. So I'm encouraged by the, we'll call it negotiations that are going on to try to get some things worked out. I hope some of the things that we already have, they'll see the value in those and be able to work with us on that. And I don't remember this from last week, what's the timeline for the county's UDO?
They're hoping to have it as long as they can move forward, keep moving
Yes.
forward. They're hoping by the end of the year, they'll have it adopted. That's their
Okay.
goal.
So all of their steps will have been done to where it's fully in place by the end of the year. then?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Did you say that the county was open to 40-foot height?
They were not.
They were
no.
not.
They came back with us as a compromise at 50 feet. So we had come in up from 30, which is what existed pre removal of the ETJ. So previously, when we still had jurisdiction of the ETJ, it was 30 feet for our business district. So we went originally and said, okay, we'll go up to 40. So there can be we'll give a little bit, no problem. They came back at 50, but they did say that would be there would not be the provision that they could go up higher with the increased setbacks that exists now. So
Because right now they can negotiate
That's
that
right.
out,
that's right.
basically. It's like dealing at a car dealership, isn't it? You kind of keep going back and forth.
right.
Yeah. For me, that's never a pleasant thing to do. So like I say, thank y'all for that. There was conversation, I think, at the Alderman's meeting last week about possibly this board meeting with county staff, our staff,
Yes.
and their planning board. And it was bannered about that was too many fingers getting into it, maybe, too many opinions coming into it. So I'm confident in our staff, and I think Wes is involved
Yes,
in
ma'am.
helping with all of this too. And so I'm confident that y'all got this because you're already this far into
Right.
this. We talked about our involvement early on, and I think it's better for staff to work with staff there. I don't particularly like that expression, but y'all got this, I think.
I appreciate
Okay.
that. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Lay, you're over there. You have anything you want to tell us tonight? Words of encouragement. No pressure, no pressure.
One of the interesting question asked was concerning enforcement on lots and whatnot, what was impervious and not impervious. One of the best ways to do that is you have to have a strong HOA, POA architectural review board. As a matter of fact, Wendell sat in a couple of weeks ago on an issue that we had over where I live. The builder had a driveway going in that looked like LaGuardia Airport. And we encouraged him to consider, instead of that, some 57 stone. And some things that he or she did or did not want to do. And the ARB said, no, heck no, you're not going to do that. And we're not going to give you our permits. And Wendell, in essence, said, I'm not going to give you the city permits either. So you've got to have, and where I am, we even have a guy there who has some of the original plans for the subdivision. So we can go back to those and tell you each lot, what is pervious and what's not pervious. And you have to stick with that. One of the guys, when this guy was putting in the house, I don't know how he's planning on putting it on there, but he was not, every right of way that you could be in, he was sticking the house in. So we had to, kind of shape his thinking a bit. No, you can't do that. And finally, they went directly to the people that owned the home or building the home. And they said, oh, okay, well, we're not going to be dealing with the builder anymore. We're going to talk to the people that are actually building the house. So key is you got to have a strong architectural review board in the neighborhood. If you don't do that, then somebody on the city level, and Wendell certainly, he's not bashful. So, you've got to have some oversight and just look around and see what people are doing. I mean, it's somebody, everything between here and I-95 is flat. If it rains, it's going to flood. So, we've got to be very careful there. All we can do is mitigate it as best we can. Tom Z hit it right on the head. And that's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate you being here. Okay. I anticipate us needing at least one more, likely two more meetings for our courthouse review and recommendations. Our deadline to get this back to the alderman is 5 p.m. April 3rd. So can we all look while we're here together? Can we do a meeting next Tuesday morning, March the 25th? You are a traveling man, let me just tell you. But we have had your smiling face on these screens before, so we might be able to do that, okay?
Madam Chair, Monday, Tuesday, we're not available. They asked if you could do it any other days than that. I'm sorry. Sorry, it wasn't me.
Okay, then scratch the 25th. And is that because of space concerns? Is that space concerns, Tori?
I believe the police chief wanted to be there and he wasn't going to be, and he was off those days. So that was why.
Okay. All right, the 27th. Any nays for that? Except you, we'll work it out. In the morning, will that work if we can set up a space, the 27th?
And Indian Trail is available if you want to do it there.
We'll take it.
Okay.
Make that so.
What time?
10 o'clock, is that okay, guys? Okay, that works out okay for you, Will? Okay, all
That was
right.
27th.
27th at 10 o'clock, okay? And then can we also then look at April Fool's Day, April 1st, folks, in case we need it. Let's go ahead and look at those calendars. Can we do that as well? I know it does, doesn't it? At 10 o'clock again on April 1st. Tori, you think can you look for that? Oh, the 10 o'clock.
On April 1st?
Yes, again,
Yes.
Can we do that at Indian Trail?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
As long as we're out by 1.
On the 1st. Okay. All right. No later than 1 o'clock. Okay. And we'll do that. On the 1st is 10 o'clock. And we'll be gone by 1 for the next group coming in. I'm taking it, right? Yes. Set those aside for us, please, so we can get our part wrapped up. Appreciate that. Does anyone have any announcements for us this evening? Other than what Mo's told us about. Thank you for doing those, Mo, as for other committees. And go ahead.
So Mo mentioned Arbor Day. I happen to be on the forestry committee, and it should be a fun little event. It's going to take place in Franklin Square Park. It'll sort of be a show and tell of the accomplishments of maintenance there. And there will be musical entertainment. There'll be multiple speakers. The one doing the show and tell will be from Bartlett Tree Service that actually did the work. And then to end this event, there'll be something tasty to eat, depending on the weather. Last year it was very cold.
Mhm.
We'll be watching the forecast.
Thank you, Fred. Fifth.
At 11 a.m.
Thank you. And I just happened to notice, speaking of Franklin Square, I just happened to notice these things on early morning walks. But if you haven't been down the path, the sidewalk through Franklin Square, of course, this is probably not helping at what's going on right now, but try to go down through there and see all the camellias that are in bloom right now. It is gorgeous going down through that with the different varieties and colors. It's breathtaking. And Larry, I'm gonna send you some things to put on the Garden Club Facebook page for that, because I've been taking some pictures all along. Okay, anyone else with announcements? Hearing none, can I get a motion, please, gentlemen, to adjourn? Thank you, Will, and Larry second that. That was quick. We do have a motion on the floor. Any final discussion on it? All those in favor, say aye, please. Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen, for attending tonight. We are adjourned at 7:21.
Hit that rock. John. Hit that rock. Hit that rock. Tracy. Yes, that'd be great. So, Chris. Tracy, what should you right? Next Thursday. Yeah.